Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening. Although I know some of you may be in different areas, maybe it's the afternoon, maybe it's the morning where you are. We had someone from Bangladesh the other morning, but thank you. I'm Nate Smith, and thank you for joining us for our third day of events at the Sixth Festival. I am a co-curator and co-founder of the festival, and this is our very first year. And I am just astounded at where it has come to. We've done this without any funding, without any experience, and without like major corporate or PR sponsors. And it's for a matter of great importance, as I'm sure that you all are aware. Um, Climate change is the pressing concern of our time, and we have about a decade to do anything about it, as President Biden's climate conference acknowledged just a few days ago, that this is the decade to act. And I think every little part counts. So thank you for being here, because this is one of those little parts. We have 20 other events still remaining, all free, mostly on Zoom and online, some here in Chicago. So check us out, thesixthfest.org. And without further ado, I'd like to move into our event. Thank you so much to all of our actors who are contributing their time and being a part, our wonderful director who you will see all at the end. This is The Shelter, adapted from a Twilight Zone episode written by Rod Serling, of the same name. And I did want to take just a pause before we started the play and then go into the following conversation with peace activist Kathy Kelly, a three-time Nobel nominated peace activist who I'm very excited to sit down and have a discussion with following the play. But I did want to start the play with the mention of Rod Serling and his inspiration to me, as he was to a lot of people, including some that I've heard from around this event, that part of the idea behind the festival is that you don't have to change your life to become included, involved in what needs to be done in the world. I think something can be done from wherever you are, and arts and activism can totally be in the same place. Rod Serling believed that thoroughly. He became involved in television in its infancy, when it was still stage plays largely, just being recorded and streamed to TV on from a stage. And he got a lot of awards during this time, but as it started to become more commercialized and 30-minute episodes, things like that, and commercials, they didn't like his messaging being so socially conscious and direct on the nose. So he thought, well, if I put this in alien costumes, people are all of a sudden okay with me talking about our inequities and our problems. So I'm very excited to in some way share at least the inspiration of his work and this perspective on this great matter. And without further ado, I do need to say that this is a radio play version of the script. You will not be seeing actors' faces. You're just going to be seeing the characters' names. I agreed with the director that this was the way to go with it. I think that it's going to be really, really enjoyable. So thank you for being here, and enjoy.
It's not the first time, he says, and it won't be the last.
Okay. In all seriousness, Doc,
No.
this'll only take a minute. It'll be over before you know it. Seriously, there isn't a better person, a better neighbor, or someone I'd let tell me my cough means nothing and to go back to bed sooner than you.
Here.
We love you. We love you for what and who you are, and for what and who you do. Hey, Grace. Jesus, is this what happens to me after 2 glasses now? Anyway, I'm glad as hell you're my friend, and gladder you were born. To Dr. Corey.
Dr.
Dr.
Corey.
Corey. Here, here.
Happy birthday.
Thank you, Jen, and thank you all.
And here's hoping you never collect on all those unlocked visits.
Are you kidding? You're my retirement plan.
I'm no good at speeches, and there's not really a way to say what you have done. You saved me. Us. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you two. We are honored to be at this table. I owe you the very breath I breathe. Happy birthday, Doctor, and many, many more to come.
Here,
Happy
here.
birthday.
She's a jolly good fellow. For
For she's a jolly good
Thank
fellow.
you, Tempe. Thank you, Julie. Thank you both.
Happy birthday, Doctor.
Count on Julie and Tempe to steal the show. Jeez. 10 years later, you think they'd get over it. I kid.
Getting together all like this, knowing each other so long, it's really a special thing. Being so close is rare these days, especially for neighbors. Who goes next door to borrow sugar anymore? Hell, people who share the same house are strangers. More and more, I see patients suffering all kinds of ailments, diseases, diabetes, chronic stress, heart problems, psychosomatic back pains, and disc slips. All these problems of which the real underlying cause is we don't give a damn about each other anymore. I ride on the train to work and it's silent, packed and silent. I walk on the sidewalk and no one makes eye contact. It's like it's against the law to acknowledge each other. All these people, I wish I could just send them home and say to cuddle up with their loved ones, maybe quit their job, find one that's good for them, go for a walk outside and breathe the air and feel grateful. I have that with you all. We have this, that warmth, it's very special. It's the only thing worth living for.
Cheers.
Someone say to turn on the waterworks. You guys are making me cry.
We love you too.
Speaking of decent talk, did you two ever try the threesome you were talking about?
The kids are in the next room.
What? They don't know what polygamy is? They're going to be the generation that figures it out.
Can't take you anywhere.
Hey, let's go down to the bomb shelter and pretend it's the end of the world.
None of you are getting anywhere near my shelter.
Oh, please. I want to see it.
Really something.
Something proven even the doc is missing a screw or two.
Didn't we move into the Beltway to get away from DC construction?
We kept anything loud to the weekends.
Exactly, to the weekends.
You know, time off.
There is no such thing to the doctor.
She is Superwoman, lifting those bags.
The cement? You're telling me. I gave up after 2 trips. Couldn't even lift the 3rd bag. Don't know how she does it.
He's always been strong like that.
And all just so I can have my games on Saturday interrupted by forklifts and
Stop
freaking.
it. He doesn't even like sports.
Hate to break it to you, Doc, but Cold War's been over for 6-7 decades now.
Go on.
We've all got our hobbies.
Doc just prefers to pick hers up from QAnon. Look, we've got the best damned armed forces the world's ever seen. They're not going to let anything happen.
You know what? War nuts are in charge of them.
Oh, easy there, Corey. We must mind the Colonel's new toes. They are so big after his recent appointment.
Do you ever feel like he's reporting you to Langley?
He works at the Pentagon.
Oh, yeah.
And why? The smart homes are doing just fine spying on us all the time.
Shh. Besides, it's Doc that's the commie infiltrator.
Did you tell me it was the Pentagon?
Yes.
I meant nothing toward you, Ray, and I understand the skepticism. I have asked myself if I'm crazy more than a few times building that thing.
And the answer is yes.
But why would I assume that she would take the rational course here? We've known for 70 years what pumping carbon into the atmosphere was going to do. Even with people sitting at this very table because their home is now underwater, we're still doing it. So why should I grant the powers that be to have any instinct toward survival. You know how close we were during the missile crisis?
To what?
To ending it all.
Oh, this is not
Ending it.
serious.
Climate change is. The Cuban Missile Crisis was entirely different.
How? If we sent in troops like all the brass wanted to, like they want to now, the Russians would have released a nuke. Then we would have whoever wasn't of the 500 million killed in the first hour would have had nuclear winter to try and survive. If Bobby Kennedy hadn't been inside those meetings to help his brother listen to his conscience, none of us may be sitting here right now, because that is the plan we have in place. Destroy ourselves. And I'm just supposed to trust we'll never cross that line? You think our supreme leader has anyone in her corner that is counseling restraint right now?
Of course she does.
Why, of course. She listens to who she wants to and fires the rest.
Such a clown. Did you see that post?
Oh, she just wants to show off. This is all grandstanding. She's an idiot, and she thinks that making these kinds of threats is the same thing as being in charge. Oh, we'll send Armageddon, rah, rah, rah. Everything is the biggest thing to ever happen with her. It's no reason to go wearing tinfoil hats.
She has made her way to the presidency of the United States. I would not call her an idiot. But you know what else is cool is
Where do you get
dessert.
that the Russians would have nuked us if we'd sent troops into Cuba?
Noam Chomsky. On the 25th anniversary of the missile crisis, the Russians shared that was the plan. They would have launched if JFK had agreed to go in there with the troops, which, as you know, it would have...
Noam Chomsky and Robert Kennedy. You are a commie.
It's all being blown out of proportion. Ha! Get it? Blown out of... Wow. I really need to stop drinking. No one is launching nukes. Besides, she can't act without Congress.
Haven't used them. We're not going to now. Let's do presents.
Most people do not fire guns who use them to rob. You're saying they didn't use the gun because they didn't fire?
Exactly. We use nukes all the time. Every time we say that all options are on the table. That's how you end up being the biggest empire ever. And the world is sick of it. Of course, they're going to be like, well, hey, we've got them too.
Honey?
She is provoking them.
Doc, with all due respect to your intelligence and discernment, and then we really will move on because it's bad table manners, I do ask you to regard that we are talking in my field here. Yes, politics and safety concern us all, and we should all pay attention and speak our beliefs. That is what this country is built on. But I wouldn't tell you what the best way to conduct a heart surgery is. So, although mine is not the only valid or needed opinion, I concern myself with these matters and have live operational experience with them day in, day out. Just like you do with symptoms and diagnoses. It is my job to diagnose these situations, because if they go wrong, the blood is on my hands. It may seem to the common citizen like mutually assured destruction is the craziest plan to have with nukes. Why would we make it that we have to destroy the world as soon as the first is fired? Because it keeps that first from being fired. If I know that the second I send this one over, I am guaranteeing the destruction of my own country, I am never going to fire. Trust me, we got this.
That's always what the military says. Trust us.
All it is the DoD said to be prepared. So we are.
Because they're making a killing on shelters. Even just the price of the design they're selling. I'm sorry, but you got duped.
Who's conspiracy theorizing now?
Yeah, but Grace's is cozier than theirs.
How come she gets to see and we don't?
Because y'all are haters.
I wasn't supposed to show it.
Hey, at least it could be a place for the kids to live in while they do the broke after college thing. If they want to live inside 3 feet of a steel robot, that is.
It's a smart bunker, too?
It's computer operated. The whole system is automated. Air, water, tracks food and supplies, and gives projections based on supplies left.
How long could you make it?
How is it powered?
A battery. Trickle charges to stay full until it's needed. Then there's a backup one. We could definitely make it.
Same battery type as in the new Teslas, actually.
That's what you do? Bunkers, too?
No, I I software smart homes, but they're similar operating systems. They're pretty fascinating things, self-sustaining, but also a joke.
This whole thing's being blown out of proportion. Get it? Blown out of... Wow. Yeah, I really need to stop drinking. But no one is launching these nukes. Besides, she can't act without congressional...
Can we please just talk about
She
something?
had investments in these companies who want to go over there way before her presidency.
It is your birthday. I would like to not spend it arguing.
Okay.
It worries me. I'm worried, and I want to not have to think about it for just a few hours, okay?
Okay.
I'm sorry, Grace.
No, it's fine. I just want us to have a good time, and dessert and destroying the world just don't mix, do they? Now, would someone help me get plates?
Sure.
Jen,
Oh, I see how it is.
are you really 4 months along?
I know, it hardly shows, huh? My mother blew up like a balloon. Her mother, too.
Back home, it was stay inside or nothing. They didn't do this constant fear mongering,
That was already war.
but they were more honest, more direct, not threat level orange.
How are the kids' lessons going?
I think we overloaded them. Different thing after school, every other day.
At least they do anything besides be on their phones.
They hate it, though.
They'll be glad they did it later.
How's your little one?
Happy and healthy. My mother is very upset we didn't stay with her for the first 3 years of her life.
I really didn't mean to make too much fun of you, Doc. The DoD is the only agency taking any stock in any of this because it's her appointee.
Most bloated agency in the whole.
Actually,
freaking
I
country.
am the most bloated.
This is my darling's favorite bourbon bundt cake.
It smells so good.
Oh, thank you, Grace.
Yes, as always, a true artist.
Amen.
Now, on to matters of true import. It's time you open ours. The white one on top.
Who wants ice cream?
Me.
All of us.
It better not be a Trump vibrator. Dawn got me a little Trump doll vibrator in med school.
Which she didn't use once. Rude.
Not true. I put it in drinks sometimes to mix.
First cocktail you ever served me had him in it.
I think that's how it stopped working.
God, I never thought I'd say I miss Donald Trump. Open it.
What is it?
It's a watch from our alma mater with an inscription.
Can you believe it's been that long already?
With me, yes. With you, it's very sweet. Thank you both. You know what? I'll use it to time how long it takes you to run across the street asking to use my shelter.
A time that will never come.
Here is yours.
Oh, you're an angel.
You can all ignore my advice to build shelters of your own. That's your call. But as your PCP, Simon, I would advise only one slice. My woman does not go easy on the butter or the booze.
As well she shouldn't.
Oh my God.
Are any of you watching the contest?
Thank you. Something normal to talk about.
Is that reality TV?
It's better.
You watch it?
Of course she watches it.
It's so good.
I think I could actually spend 4 months down in that thing with that show. We have all the episodes downloaded.
Is that how long you could last? 4 months?
With the hydro system, if the battery's held.
You really watch that?
Don't judge.
You got room in that shelter?
No.
Hey, maybe the end of the world wouldn't be such a bad thing.
Thank you, dear. And thank you all. I appreciate you all being here celebrating with us and for letting me speak my piece about what is going on. We don't all need to agree, but we should all respect each other. However, there's no debating your cholesterol, Simon.
Mom!
Which one?
Either. Hurry!
What is it?
Oh my God!
How long do we have?
15 minutes at most.
15.
I don't know. Just finish getting the water and get whatever you need
The
from
water's
upstairs. The water's off? What?
The water just went off.
Oh, okay. Hand me that and get whatever you need. Tell the kids they have 2 minutes.
Zarathustra or The Wind in the Willows.
We have plenty of books on the tablets.
How many of them are from the library we met in?
Get both. Whoa!
Hey, Grace,
Ray. Jen.
Corey.
You two should be home doing everything you can to prepare.
In our basement, you know that's not going to do anything.
You're wasting precious time.
Those missiles could be here any minute.
You don't need to tell me. You had time. There were warnings. You chose not to do anything. I'm sorry.
Corey, please, for the love of, please.
I love you. I love both of you to the bottom of my heart. There is no room in this bunker. That is how bunkers work. Capacity.
There's room. We can sleep on the floor. Corey!
That's not... I'd let in the whole neighborhood if I could, but we can't.
We'll bring food. We can supply ourselves.
There has to be
Oxygen? Are you going to bring your own oxygen too? Or will you just breathe less? You can't add more people. You build it for how many people you need it for. Now go do everything you can to help yourself.
Oh, go fuck yourself, you selfish little...
Did she just...
Don't worry about it. Go in. I have one more thing to grab.
Go ahead, kids. Honey, do you not think it might be better to just... How long will it be before we can come out? And what would we come out to? Is going on really worth it?
Is that really what you want?
No.
Me either. I love you.
I love you.
Whoa. Go home and take shelter.
Look, I'm sorry. I'm sorry we made fun of you.
Grace, we're sorry we didn't listen. Didn't I always say how nice it was, though? I talked nice about it.
If you're in there, we won't last much longer than any of us will standing right here. Whoa. I can't help you. Any of you. I'm sorry.
Only the child, not us. Just please, the child.
Okay.
Thank you, Corey.
What the fuck?
So his kid's more valuable than us? What, because they're immigrants or?
Because it's 2 months old and requires 1/10 of what either of you need. We can't fit you.
Please, just let us in. You've got to let us inside.
Oh. So this is what we are?
If you don't let us in there,
You know what?
Simon? Julie, Tempe. Dawn, we're sorry. If we could, we'd take all of you.
Grace, please. We've known each other our whole lives. Please, you can't do this.
we'll give you all our money. You want money? We can give you $2 million.
I'm like your sister. You're just gonna let your sister die?
I'm sorry, Dawn.
Oh, Doc, you can take us. You can take us. Corey.
Go. Do anything you can.
You bitch! Grace, I fucking hate you! I always fucking hated you! You think you're so much better than us!
You're gonna wish you didn't do this. I'm gonna get you for this.
You bitch! Oh my god, please! Oh my god! How could she? Please, Grace, please! We're gonna die! We're all gonna die. Those damn Koreans got us. No offense, Julie.
We are not Asian.
Ever, babe. Where would you like to die? I think I'd...
What are you doing here?
I thought we'd be able to get to a bunker in the capital maybe, but the missiles are only a few minutes out.
Are they all... Are they already locked in?
Fish!
Took their kid.
It always was partial. How can we get in?
In there?
You know the operating system, right?
Yeah.
Well, open it. That's an interface, isn't it?
I guess I could open it. Or I can try.
It doesn't matter if they don't have the supplies to last. We'll make it through the blast at least and can go from there.
I may trip it though. It could go bad.
What do you mean?
I'd have to hack. It could just go wrong. The door may end up locked. We don't get in and they're stuck forever.
I'm fine with that.
It's this or nothing.
If I hook my phone up, I just need to get it to think I'm Corey, so that I can,
You're brilliant, babe. You got this.
Shouldn't be doing this. Leave them alone. It's our fault, our problem.
Oh wow, she didn't set up security for it at all.
Maybe they didn't think their friend trying to break in.
Oh, it's in. I'm in.
Good!
This is madness.
Shut up! You're lucky you didn't die in your godforsaken hellhole of a country.
Excuse me?
You're excused.
Oh, if I can just, almost.
Do you hear that, Grace? We're coming in.
I don't think they can hear anything.
But they can see through this little window. Hi, we're coming in.
Oh, fuck.
What?
Oh, I picked a new security. Fuck.
What? Oh no, what, babe? What?
No. Hold on. It might.
Is it still working? What's happening?
Just let me work.
Stop this.
My God! Stay back!
Julie! You monster! You're all monsters!
Yeah? Well, maybe you can't just walk in wherever you want. Get out of here. No more freeloading. It's not my fault your country didn't have what it takes to keep its people safe.
Actually, it is. Your country rose the seas. With oil it took from ours. And our crops, you took those too. The resources that would have given us a chance. And here you are doing the same thing, taking what is not yours. This is the American way.
Ray!
Yeah.
I will pray for you.
Your God is okay with us all dying?
It wasn't his choice to make.
What's going on, Simon?
It's
Simon?
This is it. What I was talking about. If I do what I'm about to try, it may let us in, but it also might lock them in there forever.
Do it!
It's way more likely that they get stuck. The air shuts off and that door opens.
Who gives a fuck? We're gonna die!
Do it!
Well,
It didn't work.
try again.
I can't. The system is gone.
Get it open!
It will not open. There's no system anymore.
The lights are off.
The air is off.
They should have let us in.
They're probably suffocating already.
Open it! My child!
I can't.
You murderers! You killed my child! You killed your friends! You're murderers!
Who cares? We're all dead!
Wait,
What?
don't you hear that? The siren stopped.
Oh, What? What? It was a false alarm?
What?
It was a mistake.
Oh my God.
There are no missiles.
We're gonna live.
Just a mistake.
We made it!
Thank God!
My child.
We're gonna live. Oh my God.
Ray!
We're safe!
We're okay, honey. We're okay.
Hey,
They should have just let us in. I need to call the office.
Ray?
Tempe. I'm sorry.
Yeah, me too. I was just, we were all so scared.
Julie?
Huh?
Oh, thank God.
There.
We're gonna be okay though.
Yeah. Yeah. We made it. We can't get it open?
You must open it. You must.
I can't.
You must try. You must. My child. My child.
MB, what's happening?
We're safe, Julie. We made it.
Oh, fuck. Grace, Corey.
Did we?
No moral, no message, no prophetic tract. Just a simple statement of fact. For civilization to survive, the human race has to remain civilized. Tonight's exercise in logic, with no little nod to the Twilight Zone.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Can we please have the wonderful actors turn on their cameras? And it's not the same in the digital world to do a bow, but please say hello to us in lieu of your wonderful work that you just did. Oh my gosh.
Hi.
Hello.
My name is Jamie Escondido. Do you guys hear me at all?
We hear you now. It was a little
Okay,
broken
great.
up.
Take two.
Yes. Hello.
My name's Jamie Gamanes, and I play Julie.
Hi, I'm Kelly Haramis, and I played Corey.
Hi, I'm Michaela Voigt, and I played Grace.
I'm Rosalind Hurwitz, and I played Dawn.
I'm Denise Smolarek, and I played Jen.
I'm Fai Siddiqui and I played Tempe.
Mike Bendeman, I was playing Ray Stans.
And I'm Liv Siegel, and I played Simon.
Thank you so much. Oh my gosh. You know, something is when it's happening and you're like, wow, I've never, this is amazing. And you wrote it, and that is incredible work. I like that. Way better than I made. So, oh my gosh, this was could we also have the amazing director come out, please?
Hi, y'all. I'm Kieran. They, them. I directed this. Yeah.
Kieran, thank you for your fabulous work. Thank you all for your fabulous work. Kieran, if I could, before we segue into our next section, I just needed to stay with this for a moment, and if I could ask you a question about your vision for this. What struck you? It's so. Could you walk us through it a little bit?
Yeah. So Nate sent me the script and I was reading over it, and just the more times I read it, the more I felt like I needed to hear it, but didn't necessarily, especially on Zoom, like need to see the action happening. And so we started approaching it in a way of thinking how we could communicate just with sound, which obviously brought a lot of sound cues. And as working with the actors, we worked a lot on like vocal expression work rather than any kind of like physical or visual expression work. Yeah, did that answer the question?
Yes, and it really worked that way. You could hear. I was astounded by the level of change. You definitely achieved that. The level of changes in the sounds of people's voices. There were so many moments that just really like a little quick moment of desperation, or when Simon is freaking out, or there are so many moments that stood out from you, kind of orchestrating it like that, like a beautiful symphony. It just finished hauntingly, and I wonder if you could say what that impression was to you, that last.
I mean, well, also going back and looking at the Twilight Zone episode this was inspired by, I was kind of trying to find a similar sort of like nihilistic tone, but I also love that the end there has a little like, even though it says there's no moral message, it kind of adds in, it just contextualizes like what we're seeing here. And so I think that helps us avoid the sort of like nihilism that would come from just seeing this piece and walking away from it without that sort of statement. Yeah, so I wanted to try to nail that tone of like nihilism, but some hope in it a little bit.
Yeah, I think that that is one of the brilliant things about the original series. I mean, it's been rebooted 3 or 4 times, currently with Jordan Peele, who is an amazing producer, but it just is not the same. And I think that there is something about how he towed that line of morality, like I was saying at the beginning, and yet letting it live in the humans. And how we're seeing it through them and how they're feeling and all of the story. So thank you for your incredible work. Is there somewhere that you would like to refer people to at a place that you work, or any hashtags that we should be sharing to show other people where they could find more from you?
I'll drop some links in the chat.
Great.
Yeah.
Great.
And I also just want to like commend all of my wonderful actors for their work here, and also Nate for your script. One thing that I think really helped me sort of uncover this format was how intentional we were about the spaces and the pauses in this script. And there's one note especially about like, from this point on, the pauses should say as much as the words. And that really like kind of clicked for me of why this works in an audio format. So,
oh, interesting. I have to say, like, you brilliantly picked that up, because that in writing scripts was something that I found, is that like, I mean for there to be space here, and people just, we speak quickly in American modern tongue. So to write in, that brilliant thing to catch. And yes, thank you again to each and every one of the actors. I wish that we could sit down with all of you for the next 30 minutes and just talk to you, but many of these people are performers in Chicago and other areas, so keep an eye out for them, because I'm sure we'll be seeing them more. Thank you all. Our next section is just as exciting, so thank you if you are still with us watching. If you didn't catch our opening moments, I'm Nate with the 6th Festival, a co-curator of the festival. And I would, before we get into our discussion that I'm so excited for with Kathy Kelly, would like to acknowledge that our Climate Change Festival, which is having its first run this year, there's 20 events still remaining, including some tomorrow that you're going to like a lot. I'll include links in the chat at the end, but I want to recognize that we are on lands that were ceded from many tribes, as all of our country was, and that one of the tribes was the Ojibwe tribe. And that these peoples are in a great battle right now in Minnesota against Line 3. It is another massive oil pipeline project, also from the Alberta tar sands, which contain a lot of methane that would screw up our entire planet, just as big as the Dakota Access, but is not getting anywhere near the amount of attention as the Dakota Access. I think it may catch this summer, that the weather is getting warmer and people can be there to support. But if you check out stopline3.org or honorearth.org, those will lead you to areas where you can find, learn more about, and support these wonderful fights that we are all included in. The pipeline is going to go directly through the last wild rice naturally growing on Earth in the lakes that they have been harvesting and living with and from for thousands and thousands of years, and the oil pipeline is going to be going straight through those. So it's an important battle locally as well as globally, affecting every one of us. Now I would like to bring on Kathy Kelly, who is a great friend of the theater company, the Still Point Theater Collective, that helped launch this festival by housing our first meetings and giving us guidance. It's been a really necessary and beneficial, nurturing place to be as a brand new festival, and someone who's never done this. So thank you to the Still Point Theater Collective, who introduced me to our speaker, Kathy Kelly, who is a 3-time Nobel nominated peace activist. It said 4 on our website for a while, which I had gotten incorrect. So it is actually 3, but she is an incredible human being. And I'm going to let her say hi before we get into a longer introduction of her. Thank you for being with us, Kathy. Thank you for contributing your time.
Well, thank you, Nate, and to everyone involved in this remarkable play. Thank you. I found that it certainly opened doors, plenty of doors to all kinds of necessary thought and feeling, and you did it so brilliantly. So I'm very pleased.
That was actually the very first question I had before we go into who you are and what we are going to talk about. I just sitting here and experiencing that, I had to ask you what this experience was like for you in a longer moment than the kind words you just shared, because it's so I'm sure it struck you in so many different ways.
Well, I think the idea of course we share our resources. Of course we share our resources with friends. That comes very naturally to us. And yet there's Corey and Dawn who have made, special arrangements for themselves. And it's all very rational and very practical. And yet in some ways, I think that what has played out historically in terms of some people feeling that they're entitled to take other people's resources, that some people have a greater right to life than others. That's not a new development. And our histories of many kinds of wars have shown that. So I'm also grateful to you, Nate, that you've mentioned that, including, talking about the people who first settled on this US land, which was stolen from other people. So yes, many, many questions are opened up and done with skill. And I think we'll all be thinking about this for a long time to come.
Thank you. That's amazing that was the first place that you started with sharing with each other, and that was, it's such a pertinent part of the story, that this story is just chopped in half between you seeing them enjoy each other's company and then quite the opposite, and on deep levels. And that was, I think, the part of the story that stood out to me. So I'm glad that that the humanity of it was in there for you as well. I'd like to let everybody know about who you are, and I'll let you do that more than myself. But Kathy Kelly has been a warrior and a peace activist her entire life, trying to, I would say, keep us sane and keep us from our worser angels. And I was hoping that you could start off with us, Kathy, by telling us a little bit about your youth, and then what the stories are behind the nominations, the Nobel nominations, because you told me in a conversation that one of them might have been from Iraq. So I'm particularly interested in hearing about that.
Well, I was a late bloomer, actually. I was, a good-hearted soul, grew up in an incredibly fortunate environment. I think back in the 50s on the southwest side of Chicago, I thought mom, dad, officer friendly, the parish priest, the nuns, everybody was in it to keep the Kelly kids happy. And we didn't really realize problems existed. They sure did. I lived in one of the most racist areas of the country. And that kind of racism has certainly not tapered off in many of our experiences, but we are living in a time when questions are being raised and asked that we never, ever thought of asking when I was younger. But I finally did get to a point where I just couldn't any longer, as a student working on a master's degree in theology, I just couldn't piously sing "Our God hears the cry of the poor" and reckon with the fact that I wasn't seeing any poor people. And so I moved to an area called Uptown on the north side of Chicago. And at the time it was the poorest neighborhood on the north side of Chicago. And I realized that the kinds of stories we tell one another really make a difference in how we look at things. I actually had a relative, a close relative, who was a Chicago policeman. And the story that the Chicago police and the emergency room nurses would tell about the people who were now my neighbors were different stories. And so I just felt this huge sense of relief that I had finally fallen in with a group of people whose way of looking at things had everything to do with sharing and service and trying to live in accord with their deepest values. And it turned out that the group that I was in with deeply valued not killing, didn't want to kill other people. Well, you know, if you try to live your life in accord with the value that says, I'm not going to kill people, I know most of us, you know, we don't carry a gun in our backpack or something, but our culture, our militarized culture, really isn't asking us for our bodies to enlist ourselves in their militaries for most of us. They're not asking for our advice or our, you know, mellifluous thoughts. What they want is our money. And so I, along with others in this uptown neighborhood, said, you know what, I'm done. I'm not going to pay for war anymore. And so I sometimes say the IRS became my spiritual director, because if you're really not going to pay money to the IRS, you pretty much have to bring your salary beneath the taxable income or make some pretty drastic changes in your life. And I say that with all happiness now at this point in my life. I'm 68 years old. I have managed to stay out of paying taxes to the United States government. And it affected my life in very, very good ways. I mean, I never learned how to drive a car. And I think given how clumsy I am, that was probably good for humanity. I never have owned property. But I also then became maybe more predisposed to being able to let go if it meant, you know, are some people able to commit to an action which could end up with a prison sentence? Well, I wouldn't have children that I leave behind. I didn't have a house or a car or belongings to worry about. I didn't have a job with tenure that I felt I had to stay committed to. So it freed me up in a lot of ways that I feel grateful for now. So I have been to prison. I spent a year for planting corn on nuclear missile silo sites. And that was one of the most educational years of my life, that year in prison. I've been to war zones in Iraq and Afghanistan, in Bosnia, Nicaragua, Lebanon, Gaza, and lived alongside people who couldn't escape those wars. And this also was tremendously educational. Snowballs would be flying in hell before this flower would get a Nobel Peace Prize, I guarantee you. But there was a point when we were breaking the economic sanctions against Iraq as often as we could by bringing medicines and medical relief supplies. And I think other groups in the peace movement thought, you know what, we may not want to join that group going over there and breaking the sanctions and living for stretches in Iraq, but we'll protect them. So they gave us every award that you could think of, you name it, we got the award. And eventually the American Friends Service Committee nominated me and Dennis Halliday, an Irish Undersecretary General of the United Nations, who resigned because of the cruelty of the economic sanctions against Iraq. We were both nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. One of those nominations, I don't usually tell this, to be honest, because I'm not sure, but in order to nominate somebody for a Nobel Peace Prize, an entire government would have to agree if it's a government nomination. And under a dictatorship, it's a lot easier to arrange that kind of agreement. So I sometimes think maybe that third nomination came from Iraq, from under Saddam Hussein's government. So that's not something that you would put on the resume, basically. But anyway, the much more important thing is that we're now facing some pretty climactic, possibly catastrophic realities. And all the more reason to embrace the play and the shelter, and to think hard about our situation now in relation to pandemics and climate catastrophe, and what really brings us security, what really brings us safety and possible shelter, and what doesn't. So I'm very happy to continue this conversation with you.
Yes, that your story is even in the brief version is absolutely incredible. I'm sure we will be returning to it throughout. But we did want to get straight into the thick of it, because that is the point. And as we're just bringing up, we saw our response to a global pandemic. We saw what I think can easily be categorized as not only an American failure of a response, but an atrocity of a response. The amount of people that would have not potentially died from the pandemic had our president acknowledged that it existed. It was not a hoax. And you can see the similarities between this and climate change. And I think, and what a lot of your work has been, which you mentioned briefly, being a lot of anti-nuclear work as well, with organizations that are doing incredible work that we'll be sharing the links for it at the end. But that we do need to sit and I think there's a phrase that keeps coming to me of being able to look the devil in the face. Of if you can't see what your trouble is, then you have very little hope of dealing with it. And there are plenty of ways to deal with it, to deal with whatever. So, and as a lot of your work has been, a lot of brilliant people's work has been, it's not only a catastrophe, it's also we're just as much opportunity for brilliance as we are for self-destruction. I think that we need to take it out of the boxes of climate and COVID and these different things that I think become, even within climate, we think of carbon instead of migration, or a number of things of it's us, it's the things that you've talked about of, are we caring for each other? How are we being militaristic instead of cooperative? That the place that we need to be looking at is us. And you and I were having a conversation about exactly the recent periods and the ways that shows us exactly what we're dealing with when we look at it, certain things. Particularly, we mentioned that the global order of our policing is like our local order. A lot of local focus is happening right now, for sure. Much needed attention to local policing, and it's hard to call it policing a lot of the time. It's something else as well that you can see in our larger structure. Could you discuss that a little bit?
Well, I think the pandemic time has given us, along with a great deal of suffering and loss for so many people, it has also given us a chance to take a look, perhaps, in that mirror that you mentioned. And so I think about the fact that if we ask questions about what gives us security or what brings us safety in a time of pandemic and climate catastrophe, I don't think we're saying, well, it's the military. In fact, in some ways, when you think about essential workers and who you turn to for help, well, the doctors, the nurses, the scientists, but also the people who are taking the food out of the ground, the grocery store workers, the transportation workers. Some of the least paid and least recognized people in our society are actually among the most valuable. So there's that reality. And then, when we look at policing and how much do we want to continue the militarized and heavily weaponized police groups that we now face. And I never, ever expected that these kinds of questions about policing would be raised up in my lifetime. I mean, I quite honestly had asked them pretty often because of having been part of the prison system quite a number of times. But then I wonder, can we also start to ask that question internationally? do we really benefit from being the policeman of the world, the policewoman of the world, using militarization and weaponry in order to take other people's resources at cut rate prices? And, I guess I'd like us all to go back to January 6th. And I would imagine each one of us was looking at the attack on the Capitol with our eyes widening and widening, and then, oh my gosh. And then at one point, President-elect Biden went on national TV and he said, "This is not us. This," meaning the marauding attack on the Capitol, "is not who we are." But you know what? If we look in the mirror honestly, yes, it is. That kind of attack, that kind of almost barbaric looking, vicious attack is what the United States has done in Baghdad, in Kabul, Afghanistan, in Nicaragua, in its support for Israeli attacks against Gaza. In war after war after war, we have ransacked other people's countries and said to them, if you don't subordinate yourselves to fulfill our national interest, we can eliminate your children. And if you don't believe it, maybe you want to check out what happened to 500,000 children in Iraq, because we put such tight economic sanctions, like tightening the thumb screws, that those children didn't live. So it is so
Can we
important.
pause there for a second? Because thank God, thank you for bringing this up. I think it is one of the looking the devils in the face that we don't even attempt. Like, nobody knows how many times the CIA has overthrown democratically elected officials or non-democratically elected officials, and where is it our business? And yet, if somebody came and did that over here, conducted a coup on our government, which you are saying that there was an attempted coup, it came from within instead. But to say that this isn't us when they are decked out, it's a very funny moment to come to this event after the first event, which was climate from the military's perspective, and there is total regard for that, and the military is not 100% evil. Nothing is black and white that simply, but the programs that we have are, even within our lifetime, we are still in these wars that are now the longest war that we have ever been in. And we don't ever think of that in regard to ourselves, at least not on a national level, of why are we constantly in other countries. And if you can see very plainly how often we've removed people that aren't letting us have their bananas or whatever they do have that we want, exactly like you are saying. There's a message clamped down on that too. Like, why do we not understand this better about ourselves?
Well, it's so interesting to see how well paid lobbyists infiltrate into our society, into our universities, into our communities, and they lobby on behalf of the military contractors. Maybe it used to be that people made weapons in order to fight wars, but I think now we make wars in order to sell weapons. It's our top crop. And so, the major industries figure out, what it is they need to do to make their profits. And that is something that they can pour money into promoting, even like buying Congress people, buying senators, more or less, and these extremely well-paid lobbying efforts. And nobody would ever call that group that's in charge of Boeing and Raytheon and General Dynamics and Lockheed criminals. We've got mass incarceration. We've locked up millions of people for, often nonviolent crimes, drug-related nonviolent crimes. But, who are the people who really pose a big, big threat to us? Well, we just saw it in the play, the people who manufacture nuclear weapons, the people who play fast and loose with their power elites and could very well take us into a nuclear war, the people who are devastating the planet and I'm so glad you mentioned the pipeline. Now, I don't want any of those people to go to prison. I don't believe in prisons. I don't believe in caging people, but I do want people to be rehabilitated. And you asked the question, Nate, well, why aren't people educated about this? And I think it's often because our media is so controlled in its upper echelons by these very well respected, very well paid, very established elites. And, once upon a time, the Occupation Project talked about the 99% and the 1%. And that 1% exercises a great deal of control. So your play is subversive. It's subversive in a good way, just like Rod Serling was. I think we catch courage from one another. I think, maybe courage is the ability to control our fears, and actors are wonderful at being courageous, because there has to be a time when you're sort of getting a bit of stage fright.
We're
But
literally trained in going towards what most people would be too terrified to
courage is
do.
the ability to control our fears. I mean, think about yourself the first time you jumped off the high dive. Is there anybody who didn't have goosebumps and your lips turned blue and you're shaking, and maybe somebody behind you is saying, come on, stupid, jump? It's scary. Yeah. So we learn courage in all kinds of different contexts, but I think we really need courage going forward, because we've each got enough fears of our own. So it doesn't make any sense to be governed by the fears of others. So of other people, and that was in the play too, the dynamics between the characters in the play. Some were saying, well, wait a minute, what if the air gets shut off and they're going to be trapped and they're going to die? So, there were people trying to raise their fears, but then others were sort of trying to say, well, you're going to have to be dominated by our fears. So those are things to think about. We catch courage from one another, but also we ought not allow other people's fears to govern our lives.
Which is the way we are obviously pulled into war. I took a moment. My mom is watching right now, and I know that she's gonna love you and your work and kindred spirits. But my dad and her married while in the late 80s, and were in Colombia and Peru during their upheavals, and we were sitting in the airport one day when I was 14, and they were still doing the announcements, which lasted for years after 9/11, of the threat level for the day, just over the airport intercom: threat level orange, and that literally every 15 minutes, and it was on Fox News. It was a major thing, and they have to constantly keep saying and it's never green. It's never green. And my mom goes, I've transplanted this into the play. She's like, in Colombia, they'd be like, stay inside or nothing. There was none of this ooh, scary, 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 scary. It was just like, there's bombs going off, don't come out, or nothing. There's not this constant level of anxiety that makes you very easy to be like, yeah, okay, break down the door because I want to live, I'm scared, or do whatever. Allow your country to act in certain ways without looking, because we just want to feel nice and safe in our world.
Maybe I could just briefly recall a time when I was in Baghdad during the 2003 shock and awe bombing, and we stayed in a small family-owned hotel. It was 5 stories and filled with the hotel owner's relatives. And then I was so touched, he invited his neighbors. Again, your play is right spot on as my memory of that comes forth, because he was Muslim, but he invited Christian neighbors. So there we are, Muslims, Christians, grandparents, a baby was born into, while the bombs are falling. And I became quite close to a woman, we called her Milada. That meant the mother of Milada. Her husband was the night clerk at the hotel. And so her 2 little children, Zainab and Milada, were there. And Milada, I think she was about maybe 4 years old. And she had a game she loved to play. She'd sit on my lap and she'd sock herself like she'd been hit by a bomb. And then she'd come back to life. And she would laugh after. And then I had a lot of flashlights. I mean, we had these crash kits that we'd assembled for ourselves. And so sometimes if the bombing seemed really intense, I knew she wanted to go with the children down into the basement, which was just 4 steps down in a prayer mat. It wasn't much of a bomb shelter, but psychologically maybe. So I would grab the flashlights. Well, Milada wanted a flashlight always. And I'd try to get her to play Tinkerbell or, shadow shows, but she wanted the flashlight so she could aim it first at her mother, and then she'd make a sound, and then she'd aim it at her sister, and then at me. And her mother was so upset, and she said, never before did she want to play games like this. And now you see, this is all what she do. But I felt little Milada was actually coping quite well, because she could, in her imagination, pretend the worst had happened and then come back to life. Pretend that she somehow had control over these terrible weapons. So I felt so indebted to little Milada. But I do want to say that when the Marines came into Baghdad, they came right outside our hotel and stopped and started to set up a checkpoint in their own armored personnel carriers and Humvees and tanks and Jeeps. And well, they looked pretty thirsty. So we went out with water for them, and lots of conversations happened. One of our members wisely stood up above with a big placard on which was written, "War equals terror." And he also pressed the button on a tape recorder so that Leonard Cohen's song Anthem was blasting out and filling the square outside. It was really quite surreal. Wow. But the mother of the 2 little girls, a few days later, was sitting in the lobby, and I thought, it's quiet out there now. I can take the girls outside. I can carry one in each arm. And I wanted so much to have them see fresh air and sunshine. And I was thinking, won't these young Marines be so happy to meet these little girls? But fortunately, first, my colonial racist self thought to ask Milada, did she want me to take her little girls outside? They were her little girls. And there she was in the corner, and she was weeping. And she said to me, "Kathy, never before did I think that this could happen to my country. And I feel very sad. And I think that this sadness, it will never go away." And you see, she didn't know where her brothers were, whether her mother and father were still alive. This was a war in her country. Those bombs had fallen on her country, and she was going to have to keep living in her country that would almost certainly move toward civil war. So it was so, in a sense, prophetic for me to hear from her. And I think if people across the United States heard those kinds of voices on the evening news, not the commentary that we're going to get from this general or from this corporate executive or from this, kind of op-ed pundit, but let us hear Milada. Let us hear the voices. People can speak for themselves. They don't need me to mediate it. But we need to have a desire for literacy, the literacy about what happens as a consequence of war. Your play will contribute to it. And really, I just wish every single day we could figure out new ways to gain that kind of literacy. And another thing that the pandemic has done is it, shut down a lot of entertainment and sports in this country. And it gave us a chance to form communities and talk about issues. And I just wonder what might happen because of that we can't even anticipate yet.
have a million things in response and could keep talking for 2 hours, but I'd like to move to there are questions in our Q&A. Wow, just thank you so much for contributing your thoughts, and I will reserve this one like bigger question to wrap us up with, but I would like to give people's thoughts and questions their time as well, since we are at that portion. So an anonymous attendee with a thumbs up on the question, so another person voting it up, asked, what are some things the average person can do to support demilitarization?
Uh-huh. Well, one thing that I think is important is maybe just to make a list. How far do you have to walk from your home in order to be at a place that either manufactures weapons or manufactures parts for weapons or teaches people how to use weapons or distributes and uses weapons on a daily basis? And I realize in the uptown area, I can get on my bike and in 10 minutes in any direction, north, south, east, or west. I'll either be at the Armory or the ROTC at a local university or a Marine Recruitment Center or Boeing. Well, it could be 20 minutes to get down to Boeing, but Boeing that manufactures these hideous laser guided missiles. Oh my goodness, they're awful missiles, and sells them to Saudi Arabia to use against Yemen.
The Tomahawk?
Well, they're like the Tomahawk. Theirs are called the SLAM-ER, standoff land-air missiles extended response. But yeah, that's the same idea. These things are about the size of a compact car. And when a plane lets it out, it dangles on a fuse. And then once it's cut from the fuse, it starts to hurtle to the ground. And, wherever it explodes, shards, the 200 pounds of TNT go flying, and these shards travel faster than the speed of sound. So if one hits you, wow, I have a friend who wrote the cover story for New York Times Magazine, tracing the journey of a missile from Arizona, Raytheon factory, to Arhab in Yemen. And at the end of his story, a guy he's interviewing who was hit when the missile hit, and it hit a neighborhood that was digging for a well for water and had pooled their resources. Anyway, he got hit, his leg was maimed, he would always have headaches every day, his friends had been killed, but he took the hand of the reporter, Jeffrey Stern, and he said, here. And Jeffrey felt embedded in Fahd's cheek and forehead and jaw the pieces of the missile. And so he concludes his article saying, I wanted to follow the journey of a bomb from a US factory in Arizona, and I followed it all the way to a small remote village in Yemen, to the cheek of a man who thought he had something to celebrate. So one of the things we can do is try to figure out who are the warlords in our lives, who is making big contributions to big weapon making companies. Maybe it's your pension fund, maybe it's your university, maybe sometimes even faith-based groups get involved. So that's one thing we can do. And then the other thing is to ask the community leaders, university chancellors, faith-based leaders, community leaders, mayors, alder people, the people that have some influence, ask them to start asking questions about divestment, about pulling the money back from these big major military contractors.
There's another mirror with the climate crisis, that divestment is a
Sure.
portion of this, as well as sanctions obviously have to come into place, but just divestment, and it seems like such a common response to like write to these people, but you can find their emails and you can, yes, that's a very practical action step. The next question is from Lisa. Hey, Lisa, thank you for being with us.
Hi, Lisa.
Lisa is our common ally who runs the Still Point Theater Collective. So very, very glad that she is with us. She asked, Kathy, I'm curious what your opinion is about the recent presidential turnover. With the Biden administration now in the White House, do you feel that our threat of nuclear war has decreased, increased, or stay the same as it was under the Trump administration?
Well, thank you for that question. I'm sorry to say, I think it is quite dangerous right now. You know, Lisa, you would remember when we went to Kansas City, activists to plant corn on top of nuclear missile silo sites. And at the time, there were 1,000 intercontinental ballistic missiles buried under the ground, and 150 of them surrounded Kansas City. And there were missiles also in submarines and loaded onto airplanes. And it was the height of the Cold War. And we really believed, one of these days there could be a nuclear exchange. Well, now the Pentagon is asking for what they call ground-based strategic deterrence, which will involve going to missile silos already in place in Colorado, North Dakota, South Dakota, and Wyoming, and putting in new, modernized, underground nuclear intercontinental ballistic missiles at the cost of billions and billions and billions of dollars. We have the submarines on both coasts that prowl along the ocean floor, carrying enough nuclear explosive power to make Hiroshima seem like a small event. We have a Cold War brewing with China and with Russia. And, at a time when, you would think we'd be learning how to collectively solve our real problems with pandemics and with climate catastrophe, that we'd be saying, okay, look, everybody, let's get all hands on deck. Let's pool our scientists. Let's work together. But that's not what's happening. I think that in terms of foreign policy, our new President Biden, who is certainly making things much better in terms of infrastructure and is at least beginning to reckon with climate catastrophe, on the foreign policy matter, it's dangerous. The people he has appointed, the acceptance of Cold War mentality, and the modernization of nuclear weapons, and the continued blockade of Yemen, that makes me think President Biden is not getting good advice. And in a way, he's not living up to what so many people who voted him into office were looking for.
Mm-hmm. This is something that is the same regardless of party as a lot of our greatest troubles are. We've got one more question that we'll get to. I just wanted to pause on that because these are happening right now. That the acceleration of these weapons, like you're saying, they're not slowing down by any means. And the thought that occurred during the play was that it needed to be pulled from Rod Serling's time to ours and put it in the present or the near future, because we don't, it's one of those things that's also not clicking, and we don't see the continuation of funds going this direction. Foreign policy, as we call it, which is I think a brilliant PR move to call it the Department of Defense.
It used to be called the War Department. They changed the name after the 1945, when the charter for the UN said you could only go to war in self-defense. So then they thought, oh, all right, we'll call it the Defense Department.
Yeah. And so it does start to, we don't think like we really want to believe in our party, and when it comes to power. And if you're looking at when these coups occur, the drone acceleration program under Obama, which is fairly well known, that part of our policy, it stays the same almost regardless. And I think that the nearness of nukes is really misunderstood, like climate change is, although that could be, We need a Department of Peace, Elizabeth just said in the chat.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Yes, we do. Just with 4 times the funding, just take the funding from that one. But there was that story with Bobby Kennedy was the only one that I could pick from Daniel Ellsberg's brilliant book. Daniel Ellsberg released the Pentagon Papers and released a book. I think Doomsday is in the title. Doomsday. That he enumerates how many times we've been this close to causing that nuclear exchange that would be, for lack of a different way to put it, the end of it. And there was one moment during the Cold War where it was one Russian commander's decision not to launch a nuke. 2 of the trio that needed to confirm we were going to launch on America. Doomsday Machine, Elizabeth said, is maybe the name of the book. But the 2 submarine commanders, they all had authority to launch on America. They had because they had lost communication with Russia. They thought, oh, the Americans are being aggressive. They must be attacking. We should launch a nuke. 2 of them said yes. One was like, no. And because that one person decided not to launch a nuke, we avoided global instant catastrophe. And we're no less near that now. And we certainly haven't changed our behavior. So thank you for shedding the light on that, because it seems like exactly what you're saying. I wish we were hearing from you and the direct experiencers' words around how we behave in the world. I'm sorry that
I think it's so important that you mentioned pausing in the play, that the pauses were really important, because I think that's one of the other things we need to do, to kind of slow down and pause and look at the reality that we actually face, and ask ourselves, well, what are the real terrors we face? And, the real terrors we face aren't coming from Iraq or Afghanistan. I don't think they're coming from China or Russia. I think the greatest terror we face is the terror of what we're doing to our own environment, through our overconsumption and through our contamination and through our violation of resources. So, are we possibly nearing a time when people really will be ready to say, maybe this doesn't work so well? And one of the things that I wanted to mention is, quite honestly, if this were happening 25 years ago, I think it's quite possible that in our different mugshots across the screen, you'd see a wisp of smoke curling up in front of the person's face, and little black plastic ashtrays would be out, and some of us would be on our 5th or 6th cigarette, including myself. We wouldn't dare now. In a public event, you wouldn't light up a cigarette. Now that's remarkable. That's a revolution of sorts. And we saw that happen. And the tobacco industry was making stuff that was poisonous. It should never have been made. It should never have been sold, but people bought it up in spades. But finally, people thought, you know what? We've got to stop poisoning ourselves. So I wonder if we might get to a point, and there's so many people working hard all the time to make it happen, if we might get to the point where we'll stigmatize war and weapons. We have to hold on to that hope. And anyway, we can't deal with the problems we face unless we dismantle the military, because they've got all the resources to pay for solving our problems.
Defund. Okay, our last comment and question here is from Patrice. Hi, Patrice, beautiful, brilliant co-worker on the festival. I was a member of WAND in the 1980s, Women's Action for Nuclear Disarmament. I'm sure you're familiar, as you're nodding. Not much has changed since then. What is the forward active steps we need to take now?
Well, I'm very close to 7 people who have been sent to prison for their plowshares action. They really believe that you have to beat swords into plowshares. And these close friends of mine entered a nuclear missile site, and they did damage, not much really, but they did do some damage, and they were given 2 and 3 year sentences.
Wow. What's the
Yeah,
charge
that's a
on that?
lot. So, I mean, I don't actually want to issue a call for all of us to run out and do damage to nuclear missile silo sites or nuclear naval submarine bases, but I do believe that we have to step up our action and find ways to support the international coalition for the abolition of nuclear weapons, which managed to get the treaty for the prohibition of nuclear weapons ratified as international law in January of this year. There should have been dancing in the streets. That was a wonderful event because now it is international law. It's just getting countries that boycotted, like the United States, to begin to hear from their populations, we do want to implement this as international law. And it's so detailed. If you go to Ireland now, Ireland made this part of their law of the land. You are violating the law if you had anything to do with manufacturing nuclear weapons, researching nuclear weapons, transporting nuclear weapons. You could actually go to prison for the rest of your life. That's how serious the Irish government took implementing this treaty as the law of the land. So that's, wherever you live, start asking your local lawmakers, can they start to look at the treaty for the prohibition of nuclear weapons? And you can go to a website called ICANW, International Coalition for the Abolition of Nukes Weapons, and learn loads and loads about that. And also think about kind of a step back from that, but who knows, banning drone warfare and the usage of police and military drones weaponized surveillance.
Those links to the organizations you were mentioning just went into the chat, and this is
Thank
going to
you.
push us 30 seconds after time. But I do want to get to one. There was one last question. That's a great question. Do you have any resources for nonviolence training? I do want to quickly throw that the XR, Extinction Rebellion, is a climate activist group and does nonviolent direct action trainings regularly. So if you look up XR Chicago or XR wherever you are, Extinction Rebellion,
Wonderful.
wherever you are, they have regular trainings in nonviolent.
And they were heroic during the time when we were leading up to the elections, thinking, well, there could be a coup. Could I also mention there's a group called Raw Tools, and they ask people, could you donate your guns to us? And then they take those guns and they put them on a kind of an anvil and they hammer them and heat them, melt them, and turn them into garden tools. And they also do nonviolence training. So just think about rawtools.org. I love this group, and you'll bump into some of the finest people in the world.
Well, thank you. I wish we were sitting here for another hour and a half. There are only more things to talk
and certainly if anybody ever wants to get in touch with me, I'll just, if it's okay, go ahead and type in my email address.
That is too. That is wonderful.
Don't ask Nate how long it takes me to answer an email message, but
oh no,
be
you
happy
are
to hear
usually a
about it.
thunderous responder. Kathy, thank you so much for your time tonight, for opening this up in a way that's really understandable and walkable. Thank you to all of our audience that's been here the whole time, and all of the really, really lovely comments. Also, again, have to say thank you to the actors and the director of the shelter. It was just astounding, just a beautiful and terrible depiction of the truth and ourselves. And I look forward to seeing your performances and your work more. You can see all of the links in the chat. We'll also be posting these videos on our website at the6thfest.org, and you can find all the resources that we've mentioned there. And I have to say thank you at the very end of our last moment for giving this any attention at all, because that is the beginning of anything. we stand at a possibility at each moment, and so you are standing at one right now, and I have to say that all of us did the right thing right now in so many ways. So thank you to everyone. Check out the sixfest.org's events. We have 20 more. They're all free. Tomorrow there's going to be a super cool documentary called The Great Green Wall about what people are doing in Africa to prepare for and avert the climate catastrophe. And it's just a wondrous looking documentary that is going to be incredible. So thank you for being with us again tonight, and keep fighting on. Take care.
Author. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye all. Thank you.